We often hear Africa spoken of as though it were a single country, one vast and uniform landmass defined only by poverty, wildlife, or conflict. That's how it appears in headlines, in old textbooks, even in the casual way people sometimes say, "I'm going to Africa," as if it were one city with one story. But the truth is infinitely more fascinating. Africa is not just a continent. It is the birthplace of humanity itself. It is the source of rivers that have carved civilizations, deserts that hold secrets older than written language, rainforests alive with untold species, and mountains that touch the clouds. Its diversity is not a detail, it is the defining fact of its existence. And if we ignore it, we ignore one of the greatest truths of human history. So let us begin with a question. What does it mean to call Africa the most diverse place on Earth? Is it about the landscapes that stretch from Sahara sand dunes to Indian Ocean coastlines? The over 2,000 languages spoken from Cape Town to Cairo? Or is it the civilizations, empires like Mali, kingdoms like Kush, trading cities like Timbuktu, each with its own system of science, governance, and spirituality? The answer is, of course, all of the above, but it is also more. Africa's diversity is not a catalog to be listed. It is a living story, one that has shaped and reshaped humanity itself. And in this episode, we're going to explore it in depth. Not as outsiders peering in, but as part of the human family that began here on African soil. To understand Africa's diversity, we need to begin with scale. Africa is vast. Geographically, it is the second largest continent in the world, covering more than 11 million square miles. But statistics alone don't do justice to the reality. Imagine this. You could fit the entire United States, China, India, most of Europe, and still have space left over, all within Africa's borders. This size matters because it sets the stage for everything else. The landmass holds deserts and deltas, savannahs, and snow-capped peaks. The Sahara alone, stretching from the Atlantic to the Red Sea, is roughly the size of the United States. Yet south of it, in the Congo Basin, lies the world's second largest rainforest, a green ocean of biodiversity rivaled only by the Amazon. And further still, the Great Rift Valley splits the continent with highlands and lakes that tell the geological story of Earth's shifting plates. But diversity in Africa is not just about the land, it is about time, human time. Fossils in Olduvai Gorge, in present-day Tanzania, tell us that our earliest ancestors walked here millions of years ago. Genetic studies trace all living humans back to a population that once lived in Africa. That means that every language, every culture, every nation on Earth can ultimately trace its roots here. The continent is not just diverse, it is the cradle of all diversity. Then there is cultural time. Over thousands of years, Africa was home to kingdoms and civilizations that rose and fell like tides. Ancient Egypt, often singled out and isolated in popular imagination, was but one of many. South of Egypt, the kingdom of Kush thrived for centuries, even ruling over Egypt as pharaohs themselves. To the west, along the Niger River, empires like Ghana, Mali, and Songhai commanded trade routes of gold and salt, building cities renowned for scholarship. In the east, along the Swahili coast, bustling trade ports connected Africa with Arabia, India, and China. This historical layering created cultural mosaics rather than monoliths. One city could be home to traders from multiple continents speaking several languages, practicing different religions, yet bound together by shared economic life. In Timbuktu, manuscripts in Arabic, Songhai, and other languages recorded astronomy, medicine, and law. In Aksum, in present-day Ethiopia, inscriptions tell us of rulers who traded with Rome, Persia, and India, while adopting Christianity centuries before much of Europe did. And yet, despite this staggering variety, Africa was often described, especially during colonial times, as uniform. Writers and conquerors painted it as a dark continent, mysterious and unchanging. That false image stripped away the richness of its histories and cultures. It is an oversimplification that still lingers, which is why we must insist on this truth. Africa has never been one story, it has always been many. This context is crucial because it helps us understand the scale of the question we're exploring. When we say Africa is the most diverse place on Earth, we are talking about geological, ecological, linguistic, cultural, and civilizational diversity that is deeper and broader than anywhere else on the planet. And with that foundation, we can now turn to the heart of the matter, the key points that reveal this diversity in action, from language and people to civilizations and ecosystems. If there is one lens through which Africa's diversity is most immediately visible, it is language. Across the continent, more than 2,000 distinct languages are spoken. That's over a third of all the languages on Earth. Imagine that. In a single continent, you encounter more linguistic variety than in all of Europe, the Americas, and much of Asia combined. These languages fall into major families: Afro-Asiatic in the north and northeast, Nilo-Saharan stretching across the Nile Valley, Niger-Congo in the west and south, and Khoisan in the deserts of southern Africa, with their famous click consonants. Within each family lies not just communication, but culture, memory, and worldview. When a people speaks in Wolof in Senegal, or Yoruba in Nigeria, or Amharic in Ethiopia, they are carrying centuries of history, idioms shaped by local realities, and philosophies encoded in words. This linguistic diversity reflects migrations, exchanges, and intermingling that span millennia. The Bantu migrations, beginning around 3,000 years ago, spread languages and agricultural practices from West Africa to the south and east. Meanwhile, Arabic spread along the north and down the Swahili coast through trade and religion. Today, in cities like Nairobi, Lagos, and Johannesburg, multilingualism is not the exception, it is the norm. And beyond language, we see diversity in ethnic identities. The Tuareg nomads of the Sahara, the San hunter-gatherers of southern Africa, the Maasai pastoralists of East Africa, the Igbo traders of West Africa. Each group embodies unique adaptations to environment and history. Africa's peoples are not isolated tribes locked in the past. They are dynamic communities that have continuously transformed, blending tradition with modernity. When we talk about African civilizations, we often face a legacy of omission. School books once suggested Africa had no history before colonization. But in reality, the continent hosted empires, kingdoms, and city-states with achievements as monumental as any in the world. Take Egypt, a marvel of engineering, governance, and culture. But do not stop there. South of Egypt lay Nubia, home to the kingdom of Kush, which produced pharaohs, pyramids, and a writing system of its own. Kushite rulers once governed Egypt, reminding us that power and culture flowed both ways along the Nile. Further west, the Ghana Empire, not to be confused with the modern nation of Ghana, dominated trans-Saharan trade as early as the 8th century. It was followed by Mali, whose legendary ruler Mansa Musa became synonymous with wealth and generosity. Under his reign, Timbuktu blossomed into a center of scholarship, its libraries holding texts on astronomy, mathematics, and law. Later, the Songhai Empire rose, blending military might with intellectual life, until it too was transformed by shifting trade routes and foreign invasions. In southern Africa, Great Zimbabwe stood as a city of stone. Its massive walls and towers symbols of political power and architectural ingenuity. In East Africa, the Swahili coast flourished. City-states like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar linked Africa to the Indian Ocean world. Their merchants traded ivory, gold, and spices with Arabia, India, and even China, while producing a unique Swahili culture that blended African and Islamic influences. These examples illustrate a broader truth. African civilizations were not isolated. They were connected to each other and to the wider world. They produced governance systems, trade networks, and cultural expressions that rivaled any other region in scope and sophistication. Africa's ecological diversity is breathtaking. The continent contains nearly every biome imaginable. The Sahara Desert, vast and arid, seems at first glance to be empty, but even here life has adapted in ingenious ways. The Tuareg navigate dunes with memory and instinct, their camels carrying salt and goods across routes once as vital as highways. Contrast this with the Congo Basin, where dense rainforest shelters gorillas, okapi, and countless bird species. Here, human communities learn to cultivate, hunt, and fish in ways utterly different from desert life. The rainforest was not just a backdrop, it shaped societies. In the Sahel, a semi-arid zone between desert and savanna, kingdoms like Mali thrived precisely because they sat at this crossroads, where camel caravans from the north met agricultural surplus from the south. Geography here was destiny. Then there is the Great Rift Valley, stretching thousands of miles. Its fertile soils supported agriculture, while its dramatic landscapes gave rise to myths and histories. In the Ethiopian highlands, kingdoms like Aksum grew strong, trading across the Red Sea and adopting Christianity long before Europe's north embraced it. Africa's natural diversity created different challenges and opportunities, producing different forms of life, governance, and belief. Each environment demanded adaptation, and from adaptation came cultural richness. Religious diversity is another dimension. Africa is home to some of the world's oldest spiritual traditions. Indigenous belief systems, often rooted in reverence for ancestors and nature, continue to shape daily life. At the same time, Africa was an early home for global religions. Christianity reached Egypt and Ethiopia in the 1st centuries AD. Islam spread across North Africa and into West Africa by the 8th century, carried by merchants and scholars. Today, Africa has the largest Christian population in the world and one of the fastest growing Muslim populations as well. But what is remarkable is how these religions adapted and blended. In Ethiopia, Orthodox Christianity developed its own unique liturgy and traditions. Along the Swahili coast, Islam fused with local culture, producing poetry and architecture that still stand. In West Africa, Islamic scholarship in places like Timbuktu existed alongside local traditions. Diversity here is not about division. It is about synthesis, the capacity of African societies to absorb new influences while retaining core identity. Finally, let us consider Africa today. With over 1.4 billion people, Africa is the youngest continent demographically. Its median age is under 20. This means Africa's diversity is not a relic of the past, but a living, evolving reality. Modern African culture reflects both continuity and innovation. Languages like Hausa, Swahili, and Arabic serve as lingua francas across borders, while English, French, and Portuguese remain legacies of colonialism. But all of them coexist, layered on top of deep indigenous traditions. Cultural production is thriving. Afrobeats music crosses oceans. Nollywood films dominate screens across Africa and diaspora communities. Literature from African writers is reshaping global narratives. Cities like Lagos, Nairobi, and Johannesburg are hubs of technology and entrepreneurship. This is important. Africa's diversity is not just something to be admired in the past. It is a force shaping the future, economically, culturally, and politically. So when we call Africa the most diverse place on Earth, it is not just a claim about statistics or geography. It is about a living, breathing reality. A continent of deserts and rainforests, of thousands of languages, of ancient empires and modern megacities, of traditions older than writing and innovations younger than yesterday. When we step back, the picture becomes clear. Africa is not a single story. It is thousands upon thousands of stories, some remembered, some forgotten, and many still unfolding. From the deserts of the Sahara to the rainforests of the Congo, from the libraries of Timbuktu to the bustling streets of Lagos, diversity has always been the heartbeat of this continent. And yet for centuries, much of the world insisted on seeing Africa as one thing: a blank space, a dark place, a land defined by lack. That false image robbed generations of the chance to know the truth, that Africa has always been rich in people, in languages, in civilizations, in wisdom. To call Africa the most diverse place on Earth is not exaggeration, it is recognition. Recognition that this land cradled the first humans and continues to nurture more forms of life, more cultures, more ways of being than anywhere else. Recognition that diversity here is not a weakness to be erased, but a strength that has carried societies through droughts, invasions, and change. And perhaps this is the lesson for all of us. If Africa shows anything, it is that diversity is not an obstacle to unity. It is the foundation of resilience. It is the ability to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing oneself, to create new forms from old roots. So the next time someone speaks of Africa as if it were one single place, we must answer, no, it is many places, many peoples, many histories, and it is precisely in that multitude that its power lies. Because Africa's story is not just Africa's story, it is the human story, the story of where we began. And perhaps, if we are wise enough to listen, the story of how we can move forward together, diverse, resilient, and unafraid of our differences. So we leave you with this thought: if the world's first home is also the world's most diverse home, then maybe diversity itself is the oldest human inheritance, and maybe it is the key to our shared future. And if you believe in telling these stories, stories too often overlooked, then join us here. Subscribe to the channel, add your voice in the comments, and be part of this journey to reframe history. Together, we can make sure Africa's story is not only remembered but celebrated.